Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Morocco for EU4 1.35 Domination. So Morocco is a nation located in the region of the Maghreb, and we do start off with three subjects: Marrakesh, Sousse, and Tafilaut right here. And luckily we do have cores on all of their provinces, which means once a little bit of time passes, we can instantly annex them without using any diplo points at all. We also border the weak nation of Tlemcen to our east over here, and a couple of other weak guys down here. And our main rival over in the Maghreb region is Tunis, which we're actually going to be friendly right off the bat. And of course we have the Iberian nations and Granada over to our north, which is going to pose a little bit of a challenge. Morocco is a super fun nation to play as. We do start off as the semi-unique Barbary ICTA government type, which enables the ICTA taxation ability, which is of course really strong. And then we also have minus 10% land attrition, minus 0.5 yearly navy tradition decay. We can raid coasts, which means we're basically a pirate nation, and we have +1 coastal raiding range, which makes this a super strong reform right here. Moroccan ideas are really good for a naval and trade focused gameplay, starting off with +25% naval force limit and minus 25% naval attrition, finishing off with +1 attrition for enemies. And in the meantime we have minus 20% cost of advisors with ruler's culture, an idea discount and multi-piety, trade efficiency, caravan power, galley combat ability +20%, which is really strong, privateer efficiency, land maintenance discount, cav combat, and monthly autonomy change, which makes Moroccan ideas really good. And depending on what your goal is, later when you form Andalusia, you might not even take Andalusian ideas if we're going for a naval and trade focused gameplay. Of course, Morocco does have a decent mission tree right here as well, which we will be focusing on a little bit, but we will be faster than it because it doesn't really start off that strong for us. As Morocco, you're going to go ahead and annex your subjects, expand over in the Maghreb, into Iberia, and into West Africa, and maybe even colonize and become one of the most powerful nations in the world in no time. So sit back, relax, and learn what you need to do as Morocco. Alright, here we are as Morocco, and obviously the first thing we're gonna do right off the bat is go into our government interaction right here, and we are gonna select the lenient taxation ability right here for +1 diplo rep and minus 15% liberty to desire in subjects. Our subjects are a little rowdy, and if they happen to go over 50, some of the Iberian nations can sometimes support their independence, so you don't want that happening. So of course, you're gonna take lenient taxation for now. Later, we're gonna be utilizing some of these other abilities as well. Then you can go into your estates and summon the diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. Then we're gonna give the ulama religious state and clerical advisory council, along with religious diplomats and clerical education. The emirs already start off with strong duchies, which is excellent because we were going to give that out anyway, and then we're also going to give them primacy of the emirs, increased levies, and aristocratic councillors. Later, before we annex our subjects, we're also going to give them the emir's integration policy. Then we're going to give the merchant guilds land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, and indebted to the merchant guilds. No demi privileges for now, and then we can seize land. Next, we can also go ahead and select a naval doctrine, and for now, right at the start, when you're getting ready to raid, I do recommend getting the Maghrebi Corsairs naval doctrine, which gives us more privateer efficiency and even more available loot. But later, when we get ready to fight some of the stronger nations to our north, the Iberian guys pretty much, I do recommend swapping over to galley combat ability. But for now, Maghrebi Corsairs. Next, we're also going to hire some advisors. At the start, we have the 021 guy right here, which is horrible. Of course, we are going to have to stick with him for a little while, and our economic situation is not that good, but thanks to the fact that we're going to raid, we'll be good with money, and later when we annex Tafilaut, we'll be making lots of money for gold. So, even though we're losing money, we're still gonna hire 3 advisors. Get whichever level 1 admin advisor you want. I'm gonna get this national tax guy. Get a diplo rep or improve relations level 1 dip advisor. I do have this diplo rep lady, and I am gonna hire her. And then get a morale, discipline, fort defense, or manpower level 1 mil advisor. I do have this manpower and discipline guy, and I'm gonna take the manpower guy because we will be attritioning quite a lot. Next, it's time to rearrange our army a bit. So what we're gonna do right here is simply go ahead and hire the free company in the province of Fez. Doesn't really matter where you hire them. And then we're gonna take these 5 light ships over here, and you're gonna hold down shift, and you're just gonna click around a bunch of provinces like this and tell them to go everywhere. And once they're in that specific, sea tile, you can go ahead and click the raid button and pretty much gather a bunch of sailors and cash from all of these provinces around you that you can raid. I think you can go as far as here, but it doesn't hurt to try raiding somewhere else. So once the boats arrive here, you're gonna click this button. Once they get here, click it again, and that's pretty much how you raid. Next, it's time for our alliances and spy networks. So immediately right off the bat, you should be able to ally the nation of Tunis, and of course I do have the ability, so that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna ally Tunis. Then with the second diplomat right here, you're gonna royal marry the Ottomans if you can. If not, you're gonna start improving relations with them. And then with this free diplomat right here, you're gonna go ahead and start spying on Granada. Once this diplomat is back right here that you sent to ally Tunis, with that diplomat, you're gonna go ahead and spy on Tlemcen. And then you can also go ahead and set your rivals, pretty much rival the nations that have rivaled you. In my case, they're Aragon, Castile, and England, but I'm gonna rival Portugal since these guys ally each other either way. And there we go, the boats popped out of here. I just raided once, and if we unpause, you can see that the boats are here, and we can click the raid button again. There we go. This is the money we're getting, and these are the sailors that we're getting. Quite a lot of money, especially because we chose this right here. Of course, once the month takes over, you will get the Crisis of the Maghreb event, which is pretty bad. It does give us some pretty bad modifiers for pretty much all the countries in the Maghreb. At this point, you should also start building up your navy from all the money and the sailors that you got, and I do recommend building up quite a few galleys. I'm building 10 in my case. Don't worry that we're going over naval force limit. Once your boats are finished building, by this point you should have improved enough with the Ottomans to be able to ally them, and you will do precisely that. And after your boats are finished building and you've gotten a claim on Granada and Tlemcen, and keep in mind we don't have to spy on Tlemcen since Tafilalt starts off with a core on them, but we're still doing it either way to save some diplo points, you're ready to go ahead and declare your first war. And it's going to be versus Granada or Tlemcen, whichever one of these two nations is easier to fight. In my case, Granada has allied my ally Tunis, which of course is going to make it annoying for me to fight them, but if you can fight Granada first, definitely go ahead and do it. If not, you're just gonna fight Tlemcen. So it's time to declare our first war versus one of these two nations right here. Of course, before that, we're gonna put our ruler in charge of the army because we do want him to die. He is pretty sucky, and after that, you can just go ahead and declare your war. Of course, I do recommend hiring an admiral for your navy as well, and putting it either here if you're fighting Granada or over here if you're fighting Tlemcen. And as soon as you're ready, go ahead and declare your first war. Once you start your first war, I do recommend telling your subjects to siege. While you're fighting your first war right here versus Granada or Tlemcen, or later once you're fighting some of these guys right here, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're also fighting Fezzan, I do recommend vassalizing them because they usually do end up being a vassal or being conquered by Tunis or the Mamluks. So by the time you reach them right here, they probably won't exist. So if you do manage to fight them before you end up reaching them, I do recommend vassalizing them. It is pretty important. If you ended up fighting Tlemcen first, just like me, there is a chance that during this time, Castile may declare on Granada and they may get full annexed, but this is something that's completely normal. Of course, it would be better if you could get Granada instead of Castile, but even if a Castile does get them, it's really not a big deal. We're gonna end up owning this later on anyway, so don't stress. Right now, I just sieged down Fezzan. Tunis took one province from them just now in a war that they fought versus Togourd and Fezzan, but either way, I am gonna go ahead and make them my vassal. This is just so Tunis and the Mamluks don't do this. And there we go. If you end up fighting Fezzan, make them your vassal. And when you go ahead and finish your war versus Granada, you can go ahead and potentially vassalize them or full annex them. You can do whatever you want to. It's totally up to you. But if you went ahead and fought Tlemcen just like I did, then you're gonna go ahead and full annex Tlemcen. Keep in mind, Tafilalt does have a core on Figwig right here, but we don't have to give it to them, and I recommend actually not giving it to them, even though it's their core, because later we won't be able to full annex Tafilalt immediately, because this isn't our core as well, so it's not really worth it just for a 5-dev province. So go ahead and full annex all of Tlemcen yourself, and of course, take all of their money. And that's one of your first wars done. Either you have Tlemcen or Granada. Once you full annex Tlemcen, you should go ahead and spy on whichever nation is located here, unless of course Tunis has already eaten these guys up, in which case we'll be breaking our alliance with Tunis shortly. But in my case, Mazab still exists, so I am gonna spy on them. At this point, you can also improve relations with your subjects and with your allies. Once you've completed your first war and cored everything up that you've took in that war, it's time to continue with your next war, and of course if you fought Tlemcen, you're gonna look into fighting Granada. In my case, I still can't, they're fully occupied by Castile. If you fought Granada, you're gonna look into fighting Tlemcen, or if you're done with both of these guys or don't have an opportunity to fight another guy, you should look into fighting these guys. In my case, I just built a spy network on Mazab right here, and they've actually broken their alliance with Jared, so I am gonna declare on Mazab immediately right here. Ideally, we wanna wipe out Tlemcen and all of these guys right here before Tunis gets to them. So that's why I'm declaring on Mazab. In the meantime, I'm improving relations with my original 3 subjects so we can be above 190 with them, so we can immediately annex them once a couple of years pass, in 1454. I know that after I'm gonna be done with this war, I'm gonna border Jared, so preemptively, I'm gonna start spying on them. They don't have any allies either. In my game here, Castile has unfortunately full annexed Granada, and there's no opportunity for me to take anything here. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. It may happen for some of you guys as well. If you get this event, unless you want to play as this nation that gets popped out of right here, you should select the 3rd option right here. And now that my war with Mazab is done, I'm gonna go ahead and full annex them. You're doing this with whichever of these 3 nations that are located here, Mazab, Togourd, or Jared, you're fighting. And there we go. Now that I've made a claim on Jared, I will go ahead and declare on them as well. They don't have any allies. Once you start bordering the small guys right here, if they still exist, you're aiming to wipe them out as soon as possible. Once you start fighting the final nation over here that you want to fight, it is time to end your alliance with Tunis because we only allied them right at the start, so they potentially don't ally Tlemcen or Granada. In my game, it still happened, they still allied Granada, but that is the only reason for our alliance with them. Of course, if you're not feeling that confident when you want to fight these guys up here, you should in that case keep your alliance with Tunis so they can potentially help you out versus these guys. But if you feel like you're skilled enough to take on the Iberian nations, just you and the Ottomans, then you should go ahead and break your alliance with Tunis once you're almost done with full annexing these guys, which is exactly what I'm going to do in my game right here. Unfortunately, I did accidentally accept a royal marriage with Tunis. In your game, you shouldn't actually royal marry them. Only an alliance. And now that I'm done with Jared, I'll full annex them as well. In about 10 to 15 years, you should have wrapped up Tlemcen and whoever is located right here, and potentially, if you had a little bit of luck, Fezzan as well, as a vassal of course. Once you've done that, if it's still not 1454, improve with these guys to 190. If it's already past 1454, well, you should go ahead and annex them all at the same time. I'll show you how to do it once I do it. Once you've broken your alliance with Tunis, you should of course start spying on them. Yes, our mission tree does give us claims on these areas right here that we want to conquer, but as we can see, we're way faster than our mission tree pretty much allows us to be. Once you get to December 1454, you should recall all 3 of your diplomats from whatever they're doing. And once all of them are back, you're gonna go into your states once again and give the emirs integration policy, just like that. And then you're gonna start annexing Tafilal, you're gonna start annexing Sousse, and you're gonna start annexing Marrakesh. And as we can see, all of them are immediately at 100 because we start off with cores on their land. So all we need to wait for is the month to take over, just like this, and there we go. Now that it's the next month, we've annexed all of our subjects and all of this land is ours. Of course, you should immediately go ahead and full state everything that's not full stated that your subjects owned, and then you should immediately activate the Encourage Development State Edict right here in the state of Tafilal, just like that, and develop the gold mine in Tafilal up to 10 production. At this point, you can also rearrange your boats and armies depending on what you inherited from your subjects. Make sure to lower autonomy first and stuff like that so you see your actual force limit and naval force limit. As we can see, these are the boats that I have right now, and out of this I've only built 10 galleys right here. Obviously I don't need that much transports. We're way over force limit. We don't want to use 4 ducats on navies, right? So what I'm gonna do in my game right here, and you can do something similar, of course you're not gonna have the same numbers, I'm gonna get rid of 6 cogs right here. I don't need that many transports. I'm gonna get rid of 1 light ship right here. I don't need 11, and I'm gonna tell these 10 guys to once again privateer in Sevilla, and then this other fleet, who's a 3-10-10, can stay docked to get ready for battles and for transporting. Yes, I am still over naval force limit, but don't worry. If you can sustain it, then definitely go for it. Of course, our gold mine is going to help out quite a lot right now as well. Now I'm back to spying on Tunis and improving relations and currying favors with the Ottomans. Of course, you shouldn't forget to once again raid every province just like right at the start from time to time. You will be able to do it every couple of years. At this point, you will probably have quite a lot of forts as well, just like me. I have about 6 forts right now, and if you're not feeling that confident in your future wars versus these guys, you will want to keep these forts around in case they cross once you fight and you don't want them to siege you down. If you're confident that you can hold them off and prevent them from crossing and that you're not going to have any battles here, then you can definitely go ahead and delete your forts. I'm going to leave mine up because most of you watching may leave them up as well if you're newer players. As we can see, about 12 years into the game, I have paid off most of my loans. I only have 1 regular loan left. I'm doing this, of course, with the money that we used to raid, and our economy is actually in a good situation, even though I'm over army force limit, over naval force limit, and have so many forts. And the gold mine isn't even devved up to 10 yet. It's only at 9 right now. So, money situation should be pretty good about 10 to 15 years after the game starts, especially after you develop the gold mine. And about 10-15 years after the game does start, you should own pretty much all of this right here except for Tunis, and maybe, if you got lucky, you own Granada as well. It's pretty easy to wipe out Tlemcen and the small guys right at the start. Once we do that, Tunis of course is our next target once our truce with them runs out. I don't mention this too often, but of course as a Muslim nation you do usually get this event quite often where you gain corruption or lose corruption, and of course you're going to choose the option to lose corruption, but before you do that, what I recommend is you go into your economy, debase currency to gain some money, and then lose that corruption. If you don't know of this trick by now you do, and you should definitely go ahead and use it in your campaigns. Once you pay off your original burger loans and you have probably teched up by that point, I do recommend getting new burger loans and you use that money to start constructing buildings. You should be able to build some marketplaces right off the bat, so obviously you're going to go into your trade map mode right here, or simply in the buildings tab and in the marketplaces right here. And I do recommend building a marketplace in every center of trade or estuary province, pretty much every province that gives you more than 2 trade power right here. So I'm going to start off by building one in Tangier over here, then we can do one in Garb, one in Tafilalt, just like that. I do have quite a bit of money right now. We can do one in Dra, one in Agadir right here, in Tlemcen, and that's pretty much all of the relevant provinces for now. Then, as soon as I get admin tech 4, I'm gonna build some churches. Once you hit tech 4 in every category, you should start deving for the Renaissance because it won't really be spreading to us from our neighbors and stuff like that. And of course, due to the terrain that we have over here in the Maghreb, there really isn't a very good province to dev this in. Of course, some of the cheaper ones are these ones right here that produce cloth, and you could do it in your capital. Even though it's kind of expensive-ish, you do still have some nice modifiers. So I do recommend doing it in your capital. Alternatively, you could do it in Tangier. It's totally up to you. But after you get the tech 4 in every category, activate the Encourage Development State Edict and start developing for the Renaissance. In my game, I'm gonna do it in Tangier since it does produce cloth and it is a level 2 center of trade. You should do the same. For your tier 2 government reform as Morocco, I do recommend strength and noble privileges, although be careful of the emir's influence. In my game, they're already pretty influential and you don't want to have them revolt and stuff like that. If the emir's influence is too high, then you should go ahead and compromise with the nobility. But if you're good with taking on that influence, then you should strengthen noble privileges. We are gonna need that manpower because we are attritioning quite a lot in the regions that we're playing our game in. As you can see by this point, I haven't full stated any of this just yet. Some of you may be wondering why. That's because we were using the admin points to core, then we were using it to tech up to tech 4, and now we're using them to spawn the Renaissance. Later, once we have some spare admin points, we're gonna go ahead and full state all of this. Once the province that you're spawning the Renaissance in gets to 15 dev, I do recommend additionally expanding infrastructure to make it a little cheaper. I also just got a very nice event right here, not sure which one it was, but I basically gained a dev discount in the North Morocco area, which is pretty sweet and lucky. If you're having a sort of a similar game to me right here, you might be deving the Renaissance while you're getting ready to fight Tunis right here. What you need to be careful is that you don't end up being a miltech behind Tunis before you're ready to declare on them. Once your truce with Tunis is up, after you've broken your alliance with them, you can go ahead and declare on them. And one of the important reasons we allied the Ottomans is that they've potentially also allied the Ottomans. Now at this point, if you can't fight Tunis, basically if they have some strong allies, in my case they don't have any allies at all, what you should do is, if they're allied to the Ottomans, use your favors with the Ottomans and carry them up to 50 basically to make them break their alliance with Tunis. In very rare scenarios, it can happen that Tunis allied the Mamluks, in which case you're not gonna go ahead and fight Tunis, and instead you're gonna fight the Mamluks with the Ottomans as help, and then in that war make Tunis and the Mamluks end their alliance. Luckily in my game right here, I do have pretty good RNG with this, even though I didn't with Granada. So now that I'm ready, I'm gonna go ahead and declare on Tunis for the conquest of this right here. You can do it whenever you're ready as well, hopefully as soon as your truce with them expires. You will be able to beat them by yourself, or if they have 1 or 2 smallish allies. At a certain point while playing Morocco in the early game, you will get this event, a Wattasid Conspiracy right here, where you can choose the first option to lose stability, and the event the Wattasid Revolt happens, and a bunch of pretenders rise up, and then you are going to have to beat them. Of course, if the ruler is good, you can not beat them and simply let them win, or you can choose the option they remain our trusted advisors, but I do recommend this first option right here and that you deal with them so we can get that done and move on with this branch of the mission right here. If you choose this option, you're going to lose stab, pretenders are going to rise up, you're going to beat them, and then potentially pretenders are going to rise up again. So this is a pretty difficult event that you're going to have to navigate. Lots of pretenders, but I do recommend dealing with them either way. And there it is, I lost stab, and now once the next event happens, I'll show you to you, of course. And there it is, there's the Wattasid Revolt event, where 14 pretender regiments rise up in a certain province, and it tells you their culture and their religion and stuff like that. And there we go, this guy rose up. Of course, if you go over here, it says that he's a 4-4-1, which is actually not really true most of the time. So if he's really good, you can potentially let these guys win, but usually you're gonna go ahead and beat them up. And once you go ahead and beat up Tunis in your first war, of course you're not gonna be full annexing them, they're too big to get full annexed, but in your first war versus them, I do recommend focusing on these 3 center of trade provinces that they have right here, and then you can take whatever else you want. So this is what I'm gonna do in my game. I'm gonna give this score back to Fezzan that Tunis previously took from them, then I'm gonna take Tripoli, Jerba, and this province right here, which are the centers of trade, and that's not that bad, and then next I'm gonna take a little bit more, maybe something like this, and I'm gonna leave them alive in this area right here, which of course in my next war versus them I'm gonna full annex, or if someone else takes this from them, then I'm gonna have to fight someone else. But this is generally something that you should try and do in your first war versus Tunis. You don't have to take money and war ups from them after you've taken the land. We want to shorten the truce. And that's your first war with Tunis done. Once you're done with Tunis, you should go ahead and fight Fezzan if you have the possibility and if they still exist, or if they're your subject, you should look into annexing them. At this point, I finally devved up the Renaissance in Tangier. It is going to be pretty slow since we're not that good with Monarch Point generation right at the start. But once you do go ahead and dev for it, I do recommend getting regular loans or burger loans if you can, and go ahead and embracing it. Then of course, you can try and sell it to someone if there's a possibility. In my case, I can only do it to Timbuktu, but I don't actually recommend selling it to these guys down here because we're going to potentially fight them later, and we do want them to be more technologically inferior than us. Now that I've improved with Fezzan up to more than 190, I'm gonna go ahead and annex them. You should do this with them if they were your subject as soon as possible. And there we go, now I've annexed Fezzan. And by this point in the game, around 20 to 30 years after you started playing, you should own all of this with the exception of all of Tunis, and maybe if you've gotten lucky, you also have Granada right here as a subject or owned by yourself. Once you basically have a couple of provinces left to take from Tunis, you should look to expand into other areas as well. And one area that we're going to unlock pretty soon is the Sahel region right here, but for that, first we need to complete this mission, where we need to either have churches or have these provinces devved up to 15. And those provinces are Fez, Marrakesh, Meknes, and Garb. You can do it whatever you want to. Obviously, it's easier to just build churches in all of them, or mosques, I should say, or if you have the spare points, you could dev them up to 15. So once you're chilling right here and getting ready to fight here, here, or here, you should work on completing this mission. After the initial ICTA ability has expired, there's no need to go with this one anymore. You could go with the CCR one or with the tax one, depending on what you need at that point in the game. I'm gonna go with the CCR one. I'm pretty good on money right now. Now at this point, you don't really have to wait around if you have an opportunity to declare on someone. As we can see in my game right here, obviously I want to fight Castile, Portugal, and Aragon, but it is pretty difficult. Castile already has Aragon as a junior partner, along with Navarra, which isn't too relevant. They're allied to Portugal, which is pretty common, but they're also allied to Austria, which just got Burgundy as a junior partner. So all of these guys are fighting France right now. They're probably going to win. Austria is going to grow even more powerful. So this alliance situation right here, for me, is really, really difficult. If at any point you have an opportunity to fight an easy war versus any of these guys right here, you should definitely go ahead and take an advantage of it. Now I've just finished building the required mosques in these provinces right here. I did take out loans to build them, by the way, and once you do this mission right here, this event will happen, and basically we can choose whether to keep Fez as our capital and gain some dev over there, or move our capital to Marrakesh, Meknes, or Rabat. I do recommend keeping your capital in Fez because it's a very powerful level 3 fort. And there we go, that mission is done. But after that, you will be able to take the mission Saharan route as well, because you will probably fulfill these conditions by that point as well. And once you take this mission, you'll gain some caravan power, and this event happens. Basically, we gain a core on this province right here, which starts off as uncolonized, and we gain permaclaims on these areas down here. This branch of our mission tree basically pushes us to go ahead and conquer West Africa over here. You can focus on this if you want to, although I know some players don't, but I do think it is beneficial, since there's a lot of gold mines down here. And there we go, after you complete this mission, you have 3 possible routes of expansion: Iberia, Egypt, or Western Africa. And Austria just got even more powerful in my campaign, which is super unfortunate. They also just got Hungary. And of course, as you know, they're Castile's allies, so it's gonna be really difficult for me to fight Castile directly. I just got stabbed from an event, and once you complete the Wattaseed Resolution event and you gain 1 stability, you will be able to take this mission right here, which gives us permaclaims on areas that we've already conquered by now. And after that, you'll be able to take the mission Conquer Algiers, which gives us some more privateer efficiency. Just like that. Now, this branch of the mission tree right here tells us that we need to reconquer Ceuta from Portugal, which is gonna be pretty difficult in my game right here. Once you hit Admin Tech 5, pretty late, it will be time for your first idea group as Morocco, and I do feel like you have a couple of choices right here. Obviously, we do have a little branch right here which pretty much tells us to colonize, and you do have another branch just like that once you form Andalusia later on, and there are additional missions and national ideas with Andalusia that basically tell you that you need to colonize. So if you are going for the colonial game as Morocco and later Andalusia, obviously you're going to open up with exploration and then you're going to go expansion for your second one. However, if you're not going for the colonial gameplay, or if you want to do it way later in the game, then you have 2 other options, starting off as Morocco and then forming Andalusia later on as well. You can either go quality or quantity ideas. Quality is pretty good because we will want to buff up our army since we don't really have any army modifiers yet. as Morocco, and of course all the boat modifiers are really good as well, because we will end up fighting the Iberian nations, which have really strong navies, and potentially the Italian guys later on as well. And then there's an argument for quantity as well. Basically, right now we don't really have any manpower ideas, international ideas, and we are taking lots of attrition right here. We will want to build massive armies, station one over here, something like that, and we'll be crossing these deserts all the time, so we will be using up quite a bit of manpower. So those are your two options if you're not going colonial. Either quality if you're a little more careful managing your armies, or quantity if you want to scale up really rapidly. In my game right here, I am going to go with quality ideas. At this point, you can also spy on the Mamluks to gain some claims on them and prepare for your potential future war against them. Make sure to keep lowering autonomy from time to time. After you do a little bit of raiding again, just like I did, here's something I recommend doing as Morocco, especially if you're a newer player. And I know I don't recommend building forts quite a lot, but this is one of those times where we actually are going to be building forts. So the first place you're going to want to build a fort is this province right here, the province of Tuat that we got from that mission, because we want to stop these guys from over here just walking into our core of the country up here and sieging everything down. So definitely go ahead and put down a fort right there. Next, another province you're going to want to put down a fort in is Fezzan right here, for the same reason that we're building one over here, stopping people from just walking into our land. And then another province you're going to want to build a fort is this one right here, right on the border with the Mamluks. After you start constructing these forts right here, you can definitely go ahead and delete a lot of these ones over here, which is precisely what I'm going to do. Delete this one right here, this one right here, this one right here, this one right here. I'm going to keep this one up though, because it's nice to bait armies into it to go ahead and siege them down, and then you can go ahead and trap them with your navy by putting it in this tile. Once a little bit of time has passed and you've chilled, you can go ahead and continue your conquests in whichever of these three areas you feel is easiest to fight in, and usually that will be in this region right here. Keep in mind, these guys usually they do have quite a few allies. If I want to declare on Timbuktu, it's more than 30k troops right here with quite a few allies, and Air is usually a pretty strong nation. But these guys are usually very technologically inferior. In my game right here, I'm Miltech 5, Timbuktu is Miltech 3, so it's going to be super easy to beat them up. So go ahead and declare on whichever nation owns these provinces right here that you have claims on. If it's only one nation, of course you're going to take all of them right away. If it's a couple of nations, then you're going to do a couple of wars. But when fighting in West Africa, we're aiming to take these provinces, the initial ones that we got claims on. In my game right here, I'm going to declare on Timbuktu for the conquest of their capital, Timbuktu. And there we go. Even with only 40% war score, Timbuktu will already give me the provinces I want. And like I said, in your initial war, you should take only the provinces that you have claims on, because from this next mission right here, we're going to get a lot of other claims. So no need to hurry up and take anything preemptively. So that's just what I'm going to do with Timbuktu. Take the provinces that I have claims on. No money, no war reps. We want the truce with any of these guys right here to be as short as possible. Of course, if you're full annexing someone for these provinces, definitely take their money. And there's my first war in the West Africa region done. After you do yours as well, you will be able to take the mission claim Timbuktu. We discover this region right here, and we gain claims on these provinces right here. We're pretty much aiming to own all of this. Finally, at this point, I find myself with some spare admin points, and actually Tunis likes me enough to royal marry me again. Of course, I will go ahead and decline that. But speaking of admin points, now is when I'm going to continue to core, the full core, I mean, some of the provinces that we've taken from these nations over here. Whenever you have the spare money, make sure to build up a couple of more light ships as well that are gonna privateer here. And by the way, I haven't declared on Genoa, just helping out the Ottomans. The Iberia situation keeps getting even more complicated in my game because Portugal has just become a junior partner of Castile. So this is just a super unfortunate situation that I found myself in my game. Castile even has the lowlands right here because Castile and Austria are both rival to France, so Castile got a Habsburg in exchange for the lowlands right here, and this is being contested by England. England is of course gonna lose right here, so we have one of the most powerful Castiles I've ever seen, unfortunately, in a guide for Morocco. But it is what it is. By this point in the game, some of you will definitely have fought Portugal, Castile, or Aragon and have land over here. It's just that in my game, I can't really showcase that. After a little bit of time has passed, after you completed a war in one of the three regions that I said we're expanding in, you should look to expand in another one of those regions. Of course, if you have the opportunity to do so, you may be in a situation where you can't declare in Iberia, just like I am, and you may be in a situation where you can't declare on the Mamluks, or you can't declare down here. Either way, you should look for your opportunity. If you can't fight in a different region, fight in the same one. But you should definitely look into fighting the Mamluks after you've hit one war over here and pretty much completed everyone right here. And the best thing you can do with the Mamluks is actually you declaring on them and calling in the Ottomans to help you. Even if you can take on the Mamluks by yourself, yourself, I do recommend always calling in the Ottomans, since that way you will be able to control the Ottomans' truce with the Mamluks, and at the same time, while you're expanding here, you can prevent the Ottomans from expanding over here. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do in my game right here. I'm gonna declare on the Mamluks for the conquest of Benghazi right here. They have a couple of allies right here, which should be decently easy to piece out. Of course, I by myself am weaker than the Mamluks and their allies, but if I call in the Ottomans, we do outnumber them, and of course the Ottomans are super strong. So whenever you declare on the Mamluks, even if you can do it by yourself, make sure to call in the Ottomans so you control their truce with the Mamluks. And there we go. There's my first declaration on the Mamluks. You don't have to do it right now around the 1480s. You can do it pretty much whenever you're ready, but it would be good for you to declare first instead of waiting for the Ottomans to declare first. For your tier 3 government reform as Morocco and later Andalusia, I do actually recommend decentralized bureaucracy, something that I don't recommend too often, but the max promoted cultures +2 is actually going to come in really handy later on, and then the minimum autonomy in territories is also great because we won't be stating a whole lot, and then the estate's loyalty equilibrium is great as well. So for your tier 3 government reform, decentralized bureaucracy. And see, this is what I was talking about earlier about the trapping them in Jerba right here. As we can see, these guys have went over here and they have sieged down my fort, but unless they siege down Tatooine as well, they can't leave because of my navy, which actually did get beat up, so I'm building it up back right now. And there we go. Now that this pretty long war is actually done, I'm gonna go ahead and peace out the Mamluks, and in your first war versus the Mamluks, you're gonna aim to take out most of their coastline over here. That's located primarily in the region of Egypt, and that's pretty much the only thing I control either way, since the Ottomans have occupied quite a lot. So I'm gonna take these provinces right here in the state of this that I'm not gonna try and pronounce, and that's pretty little aggressive expansion. So I'm also gonna take these provinces right here, Alexandria, Rashid, and Dumyat, which is about enough for now. I could of course take more, but that's about the limit of my admin points right here, and we're gonna keep fighting these guys, so no need to rush when fighting the Mamluks. At this point, I'm also gonna get war reps and all of their money, and that's my first war with the Mamluks done. You should have done something similar. Aim to take as much coastline as you can over in the region of Egypt, and then of course we're going to push further on down into Egypt and into the Mashriq if we want to. As we can see, the situation over here is getting even crazier with these alliances in my game. Very unfortunate that I actually couldn't show off fighting these guys in my guide right here, and obviously none of you guys are going to have as bad luck as I'm having this campaign, where once again, let me tell you, Castile, that has Aragon, Portugal, now Naples as well as junior partners, which is allied to Austria, which, get this, has Burgundy and Hungary as a junior partner, and now has also gotten Bohemia. So if I want to fight Castile right here, you guys already know that this war is pretty much impossible, even with the Ottomans as help. This literally never happens in these latest patches. Austria never gets all 3 of these guys. Castile never gets all 3 of these guys. So yeah, unfortunate that it happened just now in this game for me. But some of you by this point, the 1480s, you would have a big portion of Iberia, maybe the entire southern half, and you could have already formed Andalusia if the alliance situation permitted it. Of course, the way to generally fight these guys is most likely to declare on Portugal first, build up a sizable navy, just keep hold of Ceuta right here, white peace Castile and England when they get bored, and then go ahead and fight Portugal 1v1, and then after you take Ceuta and some provinces over here, that's going to be your expansion over into Iberia. Lots of times these two guys rival each other too, so you could also catch Aragon without any strong allies, invade via this province right here. There's a ton of possibilities to find all 3 of these guys right here with weak or no allies and invade one of them. It's just that this happened in my game right here, which is pretty out there if you're asking me. Either way, now that my war with the Mamluks is done, I'm gonna chill for a little bit until I core this up and then finish off Tunis. Of course, we're juggling avenues of expansion at this point as always. Of course, always keep raiding. It's definitely an underrated source of income. In my game right here, Tunis has lost to Genoa, and this isn't something that's uncommon. Sometimes Tlemcen and Tunis can get beaten up before you end up fighting them, and some of the Iberian or Italian guys can end up taking control of some of these provinces right here. Of course, it's not a big deal. You're gonna fight them and take those provinces later when you're powerful enough. In my game right here, I'm gonna declare on Tunis right now to full annex them, and then later I'm gonna fight Genoa for these 3 provinces. They're only allied to Mantua and Florence, which will make it super easy. So there's my declaration versus Tunis. Time to full annex them. And my war versus Tunis is done. Like I said, I'm gonna full annex them. And by the way, I'm not fighting Bosnia, just helping out the Ottomans. And that's my war with them done. Now, as soon as my truce with Genoa is up, and I don't know why I have a truce with them, I think I helped out the Ottomans in something, then I'll declare. At this point, I've also finally gotten enough missionary strength to convert these provinces over here that are Ibadi. That's what I'm doing right now. There's no rush to convert these, so don't concern yourself too much with it. I've also promoted Algerian and Tunisian as well. And this rarely actually happens, but the Mamluks are getting pummeled from Ethiopia, Mushasha, and QQ in my game right here. Pretty weird game for the AI here, I do have to admit. Right now, I have a little bit of a treasury built up, and I'm also gonna go ahead and get new burger loans, and there we go, that's about 2,000 ducats right there. And of course, the great project thing immediately pops up. Now, as Morocco, we do start off with a great project already, which is really powerful, the Ait Benadu and Demnate, which gives us these bonuses, and at tier 3, it's really good as well. Then we have the holy city of Kairouan right here, which of course we're gonna take from Tunis. This one at tier 3 is super strong as well. And then down here, we're gonna take this one, which also at tier 3 is really powerful, along with the Great Mosque of Djenné. So these are 4 really nice monuments over in Africa, and of course later on when you expand into Europe, into Iberia as well, all of these right here are really great as well. You are going to focus on upgrading every single one of these monuments that you take control of. But of course for now, that's not really a priority since we're not scaling that massively, so you can use this income to build up marketplaces in the center of trade and estuary provinces, and production buildings in the high value trade good provinces, which of course later we're going to be deving, building manufactories in them, and so on. You already know which trade goods are high value. Even if they don't make too much money right now, later when we reduce autonomy, when we convert it or accept the culture, when we convert the religion, and when we have spare points to dev them up and build manufactories, these are going to generate a lot of income. So even though it's not that much right now, this is pretty much planning for the future. Once you hit admin tax 7, it will be time for your second idea group in your Morocco to Andalusia campaign. And of course, if you went with the colonial route, you opened up exploration, now you're going to get expansion. However, if you open up with the mill route, basically to quantity or quality, for your second idea group, I recommend a money-making idea group. Now, as Morocco, at this point, our economy is already in a pretty good spot, but of course, we do want to make it even better. So that's why for your second idea group, I most recommend trade ideas. Since we're not colonizing and right now we can't make trade companies since our capital is in Northern Africa, we do need to get merchants and other trade-related bonuses as Morocco from somewhere, and that is going to come from trade ideas. This is going to be especially powerful if you're staying with the Moroccan ideas for a trade and naval focused playthrough, because we already have very nice trade bonuses from these national ideas, and these ones are going to come in even more handy. Of course, even if you go with Andalusian ideas, this is still what you need to go for. So if you open up with quantity or quality, trade ideas for your second idea group. Once you've conquered a big portion of the Sevilla trade node, and of course when you form Andalusia, your capital will automatically move there, which will make Sevilla your home node. But for now, if you're still stuck in a situation like me, where you haven't moved your capital here, where you're still not Andalusia, then your third merchant you should place somewhere around here to transfer or collect. It really doesn't matter too much for now, but later of course you are going to want to route everything to Sevilla. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and collect in Alexandria. Even though collecting everywhere is not a very good strategy, later we will rearrange the merchants. Now that my truce with Genoa is up, I will be declaring for the conquest of these provinces right here. Of course, if you're interested in Italy and you end up fighting some of these guys, you could of course expand over here as well. There is an achievement where you need to own certain provinces over here as one of the Maghrebi nations, although I think it is Tunis. Now that I've wrapped up my war with Genoa, I'll be taking the 3 provinces that they took from Tunis, and actually I will expand over in Italy by taking the province of Corsica, just to put a little foot in the door right there. And I'm also going to get a little bit of cash. And that's my war done. Now I'm working on allying France right here, because they've already allied the Ottomans, so maybe me, France, and the Ottomans will be able to do something versus this massive alliance right here. Honestly, it's still insane. I honestly still can't believe this. I actually wish this happened in an A to Z video so we can do something fun with it. Now, since we're juggling expansion opportunities the whole time, it's my turn to once again expand over in Western Africa, and I'm going to declare on Songhai for these provinces right here. Be careful when fighting them specifically, they usually stay up to date on tech because of their missions. Either way, they're no match for me. So I'm just going to declare for this province right here. First, I'm also going to separate piece Timbuktu for this one province that I have a claim on from my missions. And see, this is pretty much why I told you to build forts in these specific provinces. If this fort wasn't here, Songhai would just walk right through our land and siege everything down. And there we go, Songhai will give me what I want, which is all the provinces right here that I have a claim on for my missions. You'll be doing the same when fighting these guys over here because you will gain further claims, and I'm also going to take some of their money. And that's my second war over in Western Africa done. After you conquer those provinces as well, you may have done it way earlier than me, you'll be able to take the mission Songhai campaign, which gives us perma claims on all of these areas right here, which are pretty much shared between the Niger and Sahel region. Then of course we're going to invade Mali, invade Kanem, and conquer Benin as well. This branch of our mission trade here guides us towards owning all of this right here. Super powerful, especially when we get to the gold mines as well. Around this point in the game, you may find yourself over governing capacity, but that's not a problem because as soon as you hit admin tech 8, just like this, you are going to start building a bunch of courthouses. After you complete the second mission for this portion of Africa and you get these claims, you can pretty much conquer whichever way you want to over here. You're stronger than any nations over here or any alliance combinations, so you can just declare on whoever you want, whoever you think is the easiest, whoever you think is the weakest, or whoever you think is the most fun or most beneficial. No need to form any additional alliances down here either. Pretty much the only ally you're going to need for the entirety of the campaign is the Ottomans. Unlucky that in my campaign, actually, they are a little weaker than I would like them to be. Hopefully they expand a little more, so later on, they can help me versus these guys. Now that my truce with the Mamluks is up, I will be declaring on them. Like I said, you want to keep an eye out on that truce with the Mamluks always, so you can call in the Ottomans so they don't declare their own war versus the Mamluks. But luckily, that's not really a concern in my campaign right here, because the Mamluks have been severely defeated by a bunch of nations around me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and declare for this province right there. For your tier 4 government reform, you do have a couple of options. You can strengthen the ulama if you're planning on converting everything down here. If not, you could curtail clerical privileges. Maintain balance of power is pretty good as well for the additional diplomat. All of these are pretty good as Morocco, depending on what you're going to do. In my game, I'm going to focus on converting rather than being tolerant, so I'm going to go with strengthen the ulama. Now that I've defeated the Mamluks enough to where they'll give me what I want, I am going to go ahead and peace out for that and money. And that's my second war with the Mamluks done. Like I said, we're mostly focusing on their coastline, while also taking care of these high development provinces right here. Once you grow large enough, you should look into diplo-vassalizing some nations as well. Not necessarily these guys, because it may not be that beneficial, but if you're planning on expanding over in this region or in Italy, definitely look into guys over there and over there. And by around the time colonialism spawns, your game should look a little something like this. Basically, we started off as Morocco and started off by fighting Granada if you had the chance, but if not, then you should have pushed into Tlemcen and full annexed them without giving this score back to your subject over here. After that, it was slow and steady expansion into the small nations down here south of Tunis if you had the opportunity, or you should have once again fought Granada or Tlemcen depending on who you didn't fight if you had the ability. But once you wrapped up this region right here with Tlemcen, annexed your subjects and the small nations down south, and potentially if you got into a war with Fezzan, even though you still didn't border them, you should have went ahead and vassalized them. If you didn't do that, of course, you would have potentially conquered this later on. But after you wrapped up everything over here, you should have expanded over into Tunis, taking almost everything from them in their initial war. And after getting done with Tunis once, 3 different areas of expansion open up. Basically, after you completed this mission, you got this province and you had this area of expansion, and then into Egypt and then into Iberia if you had the chance. But there's no need for me to repeat the alliance situation in my game right here, because you all know what I had to face. But some of you by this point in the game will have expanded quite a lot over in Iberia and will have already formed Andalusia. It's just something that I couldn't do in my game, but if you had favorable alliances over here, you definitely could have pushed into either of these nations over here and taken control of the provinces that are needed to form Andalusia. And after that, after opening up those 3 routes of expansion, you should have slowly expanded over here, getting your claims, then expanding over there again, getting your further claims until you get these 3rd claims over here pretty much on this entire region. And after that, you should be fighting whichever of these nations you want, whichever seems the weakest, deving up these other gold mines right here to keep rolling in cash. And of course, you should have started pushing into the Mamluks quite heavily. Like I said, it is pretty important to call in the Ottomans every war that you can, so you control the Ottomans as truce with the Mamluks. Basically, you don't want the Ottomans declaring on the Mamluks themselves and then taking provinces over here that you need. You should always be declaring on the Mamluks and calling in the Ottomans. Of course, eventually, once you start bordering these guys, they may start hating you, depending on the situation in your game. And by this point in the game, you should own pretty much the entirety of the Maghreb region. You should have a very good foothold in the Sahel region and in Egypt as well. You will continue to push on into the Mamluks, and some of you may have a hold in Iberia. Like I said, you will continue to push on in the various regions. We've already been doing so. And if you had an opportunity to fight some of the Italian nations or Aragon, you've definitely also expanded over here, maybe in Italy, maybe in some of these islands right here. But after this point, you will continue to expand in the Sahel, Niger, and Guinea regions as well. Especially if you're going for a colonial run, you are going to want to make some of these things your trade companies, especially the Ivory Coast, South Africa, and Zanzibar over here. You're going to be routing trade to Sevilla later on, once of course you form Andalusia and move your capital over to the Sevilla trade node, and you will be routing everything to over there. But in West Africa, you'll continue to conquer these regions. Over in this region of Africa, you should push into Egypt. The Horn of Africa isn't really necessary. You can go into there if you want to, of course, depending on what your goals are. Over in Arabia, you should definitely go for the Mashriq right here. Arabia, if you want to, like I said, depending on what your goals are. And in a normal-ish campaign as Morocco to Andalusia, you should aim to own something like this over here. Of course, if that's your goals. If not, you could just stick to this region over here, or maybe stick to this region over here, or maybe even go colonial. But for the foreseeable future, you'll continue to expand here, here, and here. Of course, by this point, we haven't only been focused on expanding territorially because we did start off with a pretty weak economy. By this point, you should have your economy roaring, especially after annexing your subjects and taking control of the Safi and Tunis trade nodes right here, stating everything, accepting these cultures, converting a couple of Ibadi provinces and stuff like that. And this is what I've built by this point in the game. You should have aimed to build something similar by this point in the game. As we can see, these are all the marketplaces that I've built. Here are some of the provinces that I haven't built them in yet. I did get the event right here for that basically spawns a center of trade. So marketplaces in all the center of trade provinces and estuary provinces, I haven't upgraded them to level 2 just yet. As we can see, workshops in all the high value trade good provinces, which there are quite a lot of, a bunch of churches as well, a couple of army buildings here and there, and you'll continue to build the same buildings after this point in the game. And I already mentioned the great projects earlier on that you do need to focus on. So all 4 of these right here, and then the ones in Iberia later when you conquer them as well. Pretty much all of the great projects that we're going to conquer as Morocco and as Andalusia are really strong. Definitely when you get the money up, make sure to build them up to tier 3 whenever you can after you've finished focusing on buildings. This is what my army looks like by this point in the game, 24/7. That is acceptable according to the combat width right now. Of course, I can build a larger army than this. I could actually double this one that I have right now, and we would still be able to sustain it. As we can see, my army costs only 13 ducats, so if I build another one, it'll be only 26, and I'll still be making about a 17 ducats profit right here. This is what the economy is looking like. Not that much income from trade because our main trade node is still Safi, but later once you move it to Sevilla, trade income will go up massively. Most of my income right now is from taxation, production, and gold, as we can see. This is what we open up for our first 2 idea groups as Morocco and later Andalusia. Of course, if you're going colonial, like I said, it's exploration, expansion, and then everything I'm taking right now. If you're not going colonial, like I said, quality or quantity for your first idea group, then trade for your second one. Then for your third one, another one of quality and quantity, the one that you didn't take. So in my game, it would be quantity. This is definitely needed because there is going to be a lot of traveling over these high attrition provinces, and you're definitely going to want to build up a larger army since your economy can sustain it either way. And after that, for your fourth idea group, depending on what your goals are, you could go for an expansion focused idea group such as admin or diplo, or another money making idea group such as economic or infrastructure, for example, or even a stabilization idea group such as humanist or religious. So those are your options for your fourth idea group. After that, it's pretty much up to you. This is what we took for our first 4 government reforms. For tier 5, I recommend organized military staff or military engineering. For tier 6, I recommend aristocratic court, but later when absolutism spawns, you could swap over to royal decree. For tier 7, I recommend meritocratic recruitment. Of course, if you're going colonial, you could definitely go with exile colonial companies, or for tier 8, exploitation of the new world as well. If you're not going colonial, then you can empower the burghers or embrace the economic theory. For tier 9, I recommend this one or this one, depending on the subjects you have. And for tier 10 and tier 11, all of them are really good. You can take whichever one you want at that point in the game. You won't make a mistake with either one of them, depending on your needs. And like I said, by the time colonialism spawns, your game should look a little something like this. If you're not that confident in your abilities, or if you're not sure if your game is gonna go like mine, this save file is available for all YouTube members in the Save Games Discord channel, and you can continue playing as Morocco from this date forward. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot. And if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And you can become a member today and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.